بالله وكفى السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته قول ديال همين فايلها كدوا هذا برنامجك أمور عالمك ورك جرم ولي بكمدها زيارة نوع عقوماتها انكحاس مركزيتي TUH ماينس لحدن بلاك هاوك أو يلين عيلنك إسرائيلية ولي باكبربرتي وفرتا قزة برنامج كسين كهينا شوما كينياتا نقرونشة ولي مركزيتي خلاف نحي دولدا iyo shaqaalaha yaha galay iyadoo geega saacado badan hakad galay socodka garoonka isla markaasna diyaarada ma ka degna dowladda gudaha iyo dibadda toona bana barnaamijka siinkayna qodobada kale siinhay waliba kumadaha markii koreeyay Donald J Trump iyo Kamala Harris iyo dood markaas weel dhadan doodan oo la xiriirta ololaasho lamada dhin iyo siyaasadda u lahaynimada Mareykanka lanka dhabtay ku guuleysay korlamaadiyo barnaamijka siinkayna qodobada kale siinhay waliba kumadaha Saudi Arabia waliba safaaradii Siriidan ku furday iyo Suuriya ama caasimada Suuriya ee Dimashq guriyad markii meel lama sano kor Sacuudigu iska kala baahi diblomaasiyiinta Dimashq intii soo dareeray dagaalkii Suuriya barnaamijka yahsin ku gudbiyaan qodobada kale siinhay waliba kumadaha wadamada Yurubiya waliba iyo markaasiyada bilaaban iyo cunaqabateen adag saaran Iran sidii Ingiriiska Kuroojidi adeegyadii duulimaadka tooska hay ee kala dhaxay Iran talaabadan yana dalalka Yurub waliba markaasiyada ka jawaabeen gantalada ridida dheer la sheegay in Iran ku wareejiyay Ruushka barnaamijka yahsin ku gudbiyaan qodobadaas iyo warar kale yahsin kayna barnaamijka amuro caalamka min fayla وياهي برنامجك أمور عالم كلا درر تنا تاريخ دولي باي كيد انتا تميو كوكتا بلا سبتمبر سنة لما كنا لبعتنيو أفرتا زيارة نوع عقومات انكحاس UH ماينس لحدن مركزية بلاك هاوك يولي باي كبربرتايا كونفورتا غزة زيارة دن ولي باي سكليتا إسرائيل غارهان رفح يا كديدي حلقاس ولي باي مركزية اسكدياسي اسكار كترسن عيدن كإسرائيلي او كداو عمي وير يو كلو مانا واسكو عابنتا ووير iyo kala man iska caabinta iyo la xaqaadi walan lamadan askari Israa'iiliinta iyo ka amoodan burburka diyaaradan toddoba kale ayaa ka dhaawacmeen walana markaasii sheegana waa ka sheegana shil in ay tan iyagoo iska dhaarayaan hadii diyaaradan iyo harideen dhaqdhaqaaqyada iska caabinta Gaza walana shilki waa nagada shirkin ku horeeyay nocosho ciidanka Israa'iil iyo kala man Gaza barnaamijka muro caalamka la daratan Trump waliba uu dood markaasiytii la galaya Kamala Harris walahay ku xigeenka Mareykanka iyo lankan sharcan xisbiga dimuqraadiga walahay ka Mareykanka nagdow dooda Trump iyo waliba muuqatay to liidanaan walan reed markii la fiiriyo tumansano kor haytay dood biyaasa Mareykanka sidoo lumii korboosay koobaad ee adduunka sababta musharaxiinta muuqana haano awood la ama hay waa hayan siyaasadda ka ilaaliyo koran meeliyo rogan ee Mareykanka waliba nagdaas fasiraad siyaabo shirka disney ka eedan musharaxiintan Donald J Trump iyo siyaasadda Kamala Harris tamila masana safaaradda Sacuudiga oo iskilay magaalada waa caasimada Suuriya ee Dimashqna hirinayti reeda lan furay safaaradda Sacuudiga tamila masana ka hor diblomaasiyiinta iskala baahi kureed markii dagaalkii Suuriya meel ka qaraxi lamadan dal waliba markaasiytii dhawaan reetan nageen xiriirjo sidii sheegtay wakaaladda wararka Sacuudiga SBA waliba reedan ka nagdana dooda Trump iyo Kamala Harris xitaa waliba dooda Trump iyo ka muujiday in markaasii Trump iyo ku guuleysay korta dooda Kureediya xisbiga Watch Party banaanka la doowaday waliba sheegtay waa iyo ka dhawaaqtay ama ka nagtay ereyka we will win waa guuleysay doon lita walana iyo rajayay in kursiga Mareykanka iyo hanata
phrase make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme.
waayahay guud ahaan waliba intaa ka afmarana barnaamijka Arimaha Caalamka ee Warteelka Arlaadi